Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to start off this morning when we're kind of talking about back to basics and do a run through using our My Budgets tool, which is a way that you can kind of take a basic floor plan, don't have to have a specific design, and get an idea of what the pricing would be within CWP. We do online under our training and reference material have a more in-depth PowerPoint as well as Zoom recording if you want to dive into details of my budgets. I'm just going to kind of do an overview. So the thought behind my budgets would be that you've got some rough dimensions of a space. Maybe a homeowner's brought this in. Maybe you've kind of taken it down and you have a general idea of what they're wanting. And so you kind of just do a basic space plan here. And so what you're kind of needing to get from this is some linear foot pricing. So if you kind of go through, and I'm not going to go in detail, but we've gotten these dimensions put together so that we can put these into our budget tool. And so I'm going to go into the budget tool. So you'll go to menu and my budgets. And you can click on this create a new budget. You will need to give it a project name, and you can name this just a homeowner's name, kind of whatever you want to name it. You don't have to put in a PO, and you don't have to do this address information yet unless you want to put it in there, but I'm going to do a quick little note. And I'm going to hit save. So now it's taking me to this screen where I can start budgeting a room. So I'm going to click on the budget a room tab. And it's going to pop up and ask you to select a room template. And in this drop-down menu, you have an option of kitchen, bath, or laundry. So we're going to do kitchen template. You do have to put in a room description. If you don't put in a room description, it won't let you move forward. So we're just going to call this kitchen and island, and we're going to confirm. And so now it's taking me to where I'm going to be able to enter those linear foot dimensions that we got off of our rough floor plan. So I'm going to type in, we have 15.5 for our wall cabinets. We had 15.5 for our base. Then our tall cabinets, so pantry, oven cabinets, we had one oven cabinet. So I'm just going to round that up to 3 feet. For island, you're going to do a square feet of the island. So for this one, we're going to do 16.25. So if you're going to enclose a refrigerator, you just count that as one enclosure. We're going to put in one wood hood, and then just a note about the wood hoods in this budget tool, this wood hood price is also assuming that you would be purchasing a liner and blower through CWP. And let's do 11 accessories. And then you're able to hit this calculate button. And so what that's done here is giving you kind of 3 different pricing buckets to choose from. So Essential, Select, and Premier. So you actually have the option to go through here if you wanted to do choose different pricing from the different buckets and get kind of a custom price. It'll let you do that. So for this one, I'm just going to give you a quick idea if you were to go through and select. So this will give you an idea of the difference between those Essential, Select, and Premier. So the reason I was going through and choosing Select is going to give you painted finish options, marginal overlay, wood hood. So if you go back and look, you'll see that in that Essential bucket, it kind of was budgeting 0 for a wood hood because it's under the assumption that if you were wanting to stick within that Essential price point, you would be doing very basic options, stained, simple door style, not a lot of detail to it. Whereas Premier, that would be maybe doing specialty finishes, more upcharge on the door style, more detailed wood hoods. Maybe you're doing a detailed stacked crown molding, you're going above 8 feet. So this was a quick way to kind of get a budget price without having to go through and do a detailed design or go through and enter everything into the pricing portal. Talk through going through pricing on the partner site.
Thank you, Stephanie. So when you're pricing, you're going to want to have a good floor plan and with all your dimensions, including overall of cabinetry and center lines. And then we're going to ask you to number your cabinets to correspond with your written order. And then a good set of elevations. And we're looking for, again, dimensions, numbered cabinets, everything tying back together between drawings and written orders. So an example of a floor plan. So this floor plan, the numbers have been added manually, but we are including overalls, both on floor plans and elevations, as well as center lines. And as you work with gang-built cabinetry, center lines become critical so we know exactly where your cooktop or your sink is going to center within a cabinet. So as we number, we're going left to right, top to bottom. So basically anything that's going to touch the crown goes first, as opposed to what we've all been used to with most cabinet companies where we put in all the walls, all the bases, all the talls. Here we're starting with a tall cabinet. Cabinet number one is that refrigerator enclosure. So we're going to number on this elevation. As we move to the next elevation, that numbering wants to continue. And then as we move to the island, again, the numbering is going to continue. And this is true throughout an order. If you've changed styling sections, which we do in this job because the island's a different color, you still continue the numbering. So if you have a kitchen, a bathroom, a mudroom, please don't start over with number one in each room. So to price the project, you're going to start with our styling section, otherwise known as header information. So you're going to open a styling section. You're going to start completing the sections. It will take you through drop-down menus with the cabinetry, the finish. When you're placing doors, you can place multiple door styles. In this case, we're doing a marketplace recessed with an MDF center panel, as well as a marketplace with a glass panel. So we have some prep for glass doors. If you enter them here, as opposed to on each individual cabinet, you're going to save yourself time, because at the end, you're just going to count up how many you have on the whole job. Same thing with drawers. You can do multiple styles. Slab drawer head on the top, marketplace recessed on deeper drawers. We're going to look for an edge profile on the doors and drawers. And finally, we're going to ask for millwork bundled separately. So at this point, all we're looking for is what types of molding you're going to be specifying on the job. Quantities are entered at the room level. So once we've done that, we can put in some global notes. And I like to do this at this point so that on every cabinet, I don't have to put a note in that says that my cabinet is 40 1/4 high. I've put in a default as 40 1/4. And then when I have a variation from that, such as over the refrigerator, I can put that spec in. We're going to add blocks to enter the individual cabinets. A block is an elevation. And the reason we want you to do that is so when we create your shop drawings, it can become easier to read, because we can't always put all the drawings on one sheet of paper for an entire project. And so by creating it block by block, it'll be easier for you to follow through. And again, we're numbering cabinets. You only want to number the cabinet. You do that by clicking the edit pencil. And what it will do for you is it'll put lines between cabinetry. And so all of these modifications on the refrigerator enclosure are visually tied to that cabinet. So as you enter pricing, be aware of the unit unit of measure. So the width of your cabinet is generally going to be done in inches, and you can enter it in 1/8 increments. But as we get to a hood, it's an each item. And this hood is 40 1/2 inches wide at $5,600 for the unit. If you put 40 1/2 as your quantity, you're going to exceed your client's budget, I'm pretty sure. So you're going to number, we're matching numbers, drawings to pricing. We're going to continue doing that throughout as we go item by item. So we're going walls and talls first and then bases. We're continuing our numbering on the island. And again, we're continuing to do that item by item. We want you to give us appliance cutout information. Can be done with a spec sheet, such as we're seeing here. And when you're doing built-in appliances, such as this microwave drawer, refrigerators, ovens, in the pricing, you have the option of telling us, is it a standard mount, i.e. it's going to sit on the face frame, or is it a flush inset mount, so that we know how to interpret your order. So after all the cabinets have been entered and you click Save and Done, it's going to return you to system generated items. So these are items that we generated when we created the styling section. So here's our marketplace doors. And on this job, there are going to be 2, but you're going to click on this link to enter the quantity. And then you're just going to continue to choose Save and Next to enter quantities for each item. Once you've entered all your cabinets, your pricing is complete. And in this demonstration, we're at full list price, but this price will reflect your landed cost. So you've sold the job, you've closed the sale. What do you do now? So we go back into the product information screen where we've created our pricing. And we're going to click on New Add to Order. And so we have all these little red markers, and you're always going to have those. It's not indicative of you've made a mistake. So we need you to add and confirm an install target date if you've not previously done that. This is a date where you're telling us when you would want the cabinets on the job site so they can be installed. It's not a commitment to you to take them, nor is it a commitment by Custom Wood Products to ship them on those dates. But we will try and accommodate your wishes. So to add that install target date, you click on the provide answer. It's going to bring up a calendar. You need to pick something that's in the green. So once you've picked that and hit confirm, you then also need to put a checkbox here. Next, you're going to add any additional rooms. So as I said earlier, the island's a different color, so we consider it a different room. When you click on this button, it'll bring up any additional rooms. You check on those and then click add selected rooms. So now we're going to check, we're going to confirm the information that we've got by clicking on the room name. It's going to bring up your styling section. You're going to confirm that. It's then going to take you to the room detail, the cabinetry detail, and you're going to want to confirm that. If there are issues, something that you have forgotten to include, it will highlight that and give you a place where you can correct it. Confirm and go to next will let you repeat this same process. If you have multiple rooms in one styling section, you'll keep seeing the rooms. If you have one styling section with one room and a second styling section with one room, it will take you back to the styling section first and then the room to confirm. So now we've confirmed the two rooms. We need to add our attachments. So our floor plan numbered, our elevations numbered, relevant appliance specifications, and work with your rep to understand what information is important to us in terms of appliance specs. So you just choose your file. You can add multiple files at the same time. But once we've cleared all of the little red warning signs by confirming our logo, we're going to hit submit order. And once you've hit submit order, you're going to get a notice on your screen acknowledging the order's been submitted. You should, within at least no more than 30 minutes, receive an email which will give you the job number that we've assigned to that order. If you don't see that, please call customer service. So I'm going to let Stephanie take over again and talk about placing an order with 2020.
Let's talk about placing an order using 2020. So when we talk about placing an order with 2020, this would be kind of skipping part of the steps that Dave went over with entering each item into the portal, each cabinet into the portal. So just an overview of ordering using 2020. So you will have had your project designed in 2020. You'll want to make sure that you've been using the most current CWP 2020 catalog. Again, you'll want to, once you have it designed in 2020, you'll need to have that dimension floor planned, elevations, a 2020 cabinet list. Again, any appliance and plumbing specs, you'll also need to have those ready because those will end up needing to be attached. So I'm going to kind of jump into step by step. So one thing that will be the same is even if you have a kitchen designed in 2020, we still are going to want you to go through and essentially create that order header. So you're going to still go through and create a new project. But instead of putting in your styling sections and your rooms underneath the pricing, you should have one that's called 2020 order, and that's going to have styling section and rooms under it. And so with 2020 ordering, you'll want to make sure you're doing the styling section and new room under that 2020 header. Now, if you're not seeing that and you're wanting to utilize 2020 ordering, you're going to want to contact your rep if you're not seeing that show up yet. So again, Dave touched on this a little bit about creating that styling section. So that will be the same where you're going to put in your doors, your finishes. And so you'll create as many styling sections that you need. If you need more than one, if you've got perimeter, different color than the island. You will then create your new rooms and put them under the corresponding styling section. You can also still utilize what Dave was talking about these special instructions. So if you know that you've got those wall cabinets are going to be at a little bit of a different height, or you know what you want the reveal to be between your doors and crown, that's still useful information to kind of put into these special instructions in this order header. So again, now the styling sections in your rooms are going to show up underneath the 2020 order, which is now going to give you the option when you're ready to place the order to click that new add to order button. So Dave was talking about what documents needed to be attached when you were going through and doing that. So the numbered floor plan, numbered elevations. With 2020, you'll want to make sure that you have a legend turned on your floor plan and on your elevation. So let's talk about that. So we ask that if you're utilizing 2020, when you're submitting the order, if you can use the floor plan, the NKBA tab, because it cleans up the dimensions. You don't have as many extra dimensions that you have when you're using that all tab. So if you can create the floor plan, or I'm sorry, if you can print the PDF floor plan using the NKBA tab, and then you'll want to make sure that you have a legend turned on. And so essentially, if you don't have if you're not utilizing legends all the time, you can right click on the floor plan, and through the display settings, there's a legend tab, and you can go and toggle on the automatic legend. User codes only should be checked, and then you can hit apply and OK. And what that's going to do is now it's going to create this legend that is numbered the cabinets, because we need those cabinet numbers on there. So 2020 will go through and do that if you can turn the legend onto the floor plan. You will also want to make sure that you're doing those same steps on each one of your elevations so that those numbers are going to show up on the elevation drawings as well. So now you can see these legend numbers are going to correspond with that floor plan as well. The other thing that when you're utilizing 2020 ordering is that in the notes tab for the attributes of each cabinet, if you can include any of those special instructions. So for instance, on this oven cabinet here in the notes tab, you can see we've added notes like flush toe kick, what we want our oven cutout to be, where our partition is going to be inside the cabinet, and where we want those tray dividers. And that's kind of helpful material that you can type into that notes section. Again, another example of using that notes under the attributes for a wall cabinet, specifying that maybe that top door is going to be 1/3 and then bottom door 2/3. If you have any custom quotes when you're utilizing 2020, you'll just want to make sure and note those on the floor plan so that we know what those custom quote numbers are. Now, when it comes to sending us the item list for 2020, when you go through, you're going to want to use the 2020 cabinet list. So under reports, the 2020 cabinet list. When the options pop up for the sort order, you're going to want to make sure that you have that sort order set to tall wall base, that you have user codes and descriptions selected. And then this is very important, toggling on the legend. This is something that it doesn't save in 2020, and you need to make sure and check this legend on, because when you have that legend checked on, that creates this column that you see right here that puts the legend number that's showing up on the floor plan and elevations. This is what's telling the project managers which cabinet is which number on your floor plan. It becomes a little bit complicated for them to figure out if you don't have that legend checked on, and they can't match up the numbers on the floor plan to the numbers on the item list. And then again, you'll want to make sure that you're attaching any sort of appliance and plumbing specs. We don't need necessarily all 15 pages of the appliance specs. If you can kind of go through and make sure that you're including just those ones that have the important information that we need for the cutouts. And then I kind of wanted to touch on, we started in the beginning looking at that my budgets price. And so the kitchen that I kind of showed for my budgets, the kitchen that Dave was using for his pricing, and then the one I was just showing on 2020 was all the same kitchen. And so this kind of gives you an idea of, you'll see the budget price here at $88,972, what the pricing was in our My Projects, $89,610. And then when we priced using 2020, what the 2020 pricing was. So this gives you an idea that all of our tools are pricing pretty close together to give you accurate pricing.